Cincinnati. Welcome to the jungle! Let's go. Stripes, 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 yeah, stripes, 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 yeah. Orange in the day, black in the night. Stripes in our veins, sparks gonna fly. The beast is awake, orange, black and white. Cause when the jungle come alive, who day we ignite and stripes. Cincinnati, we gon' rise and in the jungle we unite and dripping orange and black and white. Who day when we fight, live and die in these stripes. Wake up the beast, every day is a feast. Time to bust it off the leash. In the jungle dripping heat, tigers strike the city streets. East side stand up, west side stand up. If you reppin' who day, time to put your hands up. Bengals stripes, we in it. New day, new age, yeah, we get it. Cincinnati jungle fit it. Who day in our house, we win it. Orange and black and white, we build it. Earn our stripes, you know we kill it. Bleed our colors, jungle dripping. Nasty, natty, yeah, we live it. Lit the crowd, get the city loud. Yeah, we feasting now. Fit the pounce, make the city howl. Now we beastin' now. Thunder through the tunnel, from the sideline to the huddle. Stripes we tatted on the jungle when we flex that who they muscle on them. Stripes! Cincinnati, we gon' rise and in the jungle we unite and dripping orange and black and white. All day when we fight, live and die in these stripes. Stripes. Now who gotta move like it on? Stripes. Now who wanna move crossing on? Stripes. Now who wanna move on? If you got stripes and you let the city know you rock 'em, yeah we got 'em, yeah we fought 'em. Like that black and orange upon 'em. Never stop it till the beast and know who they rockin' with the diamond stripes, flossin' on the ring. Cincinnati, she's our queen. We gon' show the world who king. Orange in the day, black in the night. Stripes in our veins, sparks gonna fly. The beast is awake, orange, black and white. Cause when the jungle come alive, who day we ignite and Cincinnati, we gon' rise and in the jungle we unite and dripping orange and black and white. All day when we fight, live and die in these stripes. Now who gotta move like it on? Now who wanna move crossing on? Now who wanna move on? All day when we fight, live and die in these stripes.
Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to the show. This is Sports with Strawberry Ice. I'm your host, the Iceman, Jeff Trunapole. And as always, I'm bringing you sports from a West Side point of view right here in the great city of Cincinnati, Ohio, home of Jackpot Joey Burrow, Shooter McPherson, and the AFC North champion Cincinnati Bengals. Also, the undefeated Cincinnati Reds. I'm just putting it out there. They're undefeated. They're 1-0. Got to celebrate when you can. Now, do me a favor. If you found the show, hit that like and subscribe button. Smash that thumbs up. I'm up to 1,550 subscribers. You guys are awesome. I appreciate every single one of you guys. So if you're watching on YouTube or Twitter and you're not subscribed to my channel on YouTube, why not? Please go to YouTube channel, Sports with Strawberry Ice. Hit the subscription button. Hit the bell for the notification. And every time I go live, you'll be notified. Also, exclusively in the YouTube chat crew, we're doing super chats. So if you want to make sure your comment gets read or you got a really important question you want to ask John the Brain Sheeran, as Crypt Keeper always calls him, give me a super chat. I would greatly appreciate it. And as always, I'll come to you live from the Ice Cave. The Ice Cave is brought to you by T Properties. T Properties, quality housing for quality people. Check out the website at www.tpropertiesllc.com for all your rental property management needs and your rental needs. What's up to everybody in the chat crew? We got Tim, got Royal Flush Terry, Fox is in there, Lindsay's in there. Crip, you're in there. Strangers in there. Bengal Browns in there. Welcome to one and all to the fun Friday show we're having today. All right, so news of the day. The Bengals signed Trey Flowers. And it looks like we might have some positioning of where the indoor practice facility could go. I don't know. It's looking like it's getting a little closer. Who knows? But for all the Up to date and latest Bengals news. You got to check out Cincy Jungle. And of course, you have to check out the Orange and Black Insider podcast and John, the Brain, Sheeran. What's going on, John?
Quite the plug there. Didn't have to do any work myself.
Yeah, you come on the show. I try to help you out there, man. I appreciate you guys.
Yeah.
So what's been going on? You've been busy, covering the Bengals, hanging out. What's up?
Oh yeah, they've done nothing but make news the past 2 weeks. I've been just drowning in all this stuff we have to do. It's been nice for them not doing anything. I've been a little under the weather the last week or so. It just always happens this time of year when it's like 50, but it still kind of wants to be cold, but also wants to be hot. It's just classic Cincinnati stuff. So we're doing good though. We're doing good.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, it can't decide if it wants to be spring or if it wants to be snow or winter again. So, and I always say this: like, if there's no football, I want summer. If we got football, I'll take the cold. If it ain't football, then give me summer.
Great way to look at it.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right. So Trey Flowers got signed, and I think this is a good move. I mean, this is the news. It's 1 year, $1.85 million contract. I'm very happy with it. I've been tweeting out saying this is I don't want to say final piece to the puzzle, but as far as players that of their own that they should resign, other than maybe Larry Ogunjobi, but I don't really think that's going to happen. I think we're getting far away from that. But I think they have resigned pretty much everybody that they wanted to sign that was on their team last year.
Yeah, I think it's the last one, at least before the draft. I think with Ogunjobi, it could be something where they enter the draft wanting a defensive tackle. If they don't get one, then that door maybe opens back up. But again, that we have to wait and see what about that. But as far as before the draft, I think, yeah, you're right. He's like Trey Flowers is that final piece that they wanted to retain and get back into the equation while they're planning for the draft. And I guess it took the longest to get to. So yeah, it's a $1.8 million deal with like a $500,000 signing bonus, but the incentives make it a max value of like $2.6 million, and that's if he just plays enough snaps during the season. And I think that's why it took so long, because he's just such an interesting case where he was like this cornerback that was drafted by the Seahawks 4 years ago, didn't work out there in that scheme of defense, and then he was waived by the team in like the middle of last season. The Bengals picked him up, basically said, okay, you're not going to be a boundary cornerback anymore. You're going to be a guy who matches up with tight ends as an overhang defender, this versatile chess piece. And he really excelled in that role. So he's just not your traditional typical cornerback. And there's a chance that he plays even more now, but that there's openings in the cornerback position room in general. So I think just the intricacies of how unique of a player he is and the role that he plays, I think that's why it may have took a minute to negotiate this deal and work it out. And I think it's totally fair for the player that he is and the upside that he brings. And now he can make a little bit more on top of it if he plays enough.
Yeah, exactly. He made a tremendous difference. I mean, for years, we always kept wondering, can the Bengals ever cover a tight end, until Trey Flowers got there, and my God, he can cover them, and we need him. I mean, he is and I'm not trying to overstate this, but it is a really big signing as far as the scheme goes with the Bengals defense and with the teams that they play. I mean, we play a lot of pretty good tight ends in our own division, and having him back to be able to cover them is a huge pickup.
Well, it's like it goes back to, at least from my memory, at least 10 years of like when they need someone to match up with these guys, because like Titans really started taking over the league when like Gronk and Aaron Hernandez started breaking into the scene. And I remember that's when their linebackers were still terrible. That's when their safeties were still kind of average and whatnot. And like the mock drafts would be filled with guys at the top of the draft, like, oh, they need like tight end erasers and whatnot with premium picks. And the answer is this guy who was available in the middle of the season and is now signing for barely more than vet minimum. So like the skill set, it's rare, but the type of player, like you can find them. It's just a matter of actually going out there and evaluating it and bringing him in and making sure that he fits within the system. And that's exactly what he does.
Yeah, it's a perfect match. I mean, for what his skill set is and what the Bengals ask him to do, and they put him in. You got to give credit to Lou Anarumo. He put him in the best positions to succeed, and that was one of the issues I had with Lou the prior year, that I kept thinking he was putting guys not in the best positions to succeed. But again, I'll throw my hand up. I was completely wrong about Lou, and he's found a diamond in the rough, I think, with Trey Flowers and where he's put him in, like I said, in the positions he puts him in to succeed. And that's, you can't ask for anything more than that.
Yeah, and with Lou, a lot of people, I think 98% of people were wrong about him in general.
Yeah.
It was because like he didn't have like the proper personnel to fulfill the vision that he wanted. But the thing with him is that okay, they spent 200 million on this defense. Like they better damn well have the right personnel now to fulfill what he wants. But with Flowers, I think it's a case of a miscast, a guy he was casted off from his former team, and he's a guy that he identified or whoever like was in the scouting department to make that decision as well. But he was a guy that wasn't wanted from his old team, but didn't fit. And then they found him and they made him fit and they allowed him to thrive in a role that he succeeded. So that is a major win for Anarumo to find someone that wasn't expensive, that wasn't like at the top of free agency lists and whatnot. Just a guy who they bought low and they reaped the value of it. And now they're getting more out of him.
Yeah, exactly. And that isn't that the, I don't want to say I guess the Bengal way, but I mean the new Bengal way where they're getting the most out of their players and they're not costing them a ton of money, but they're not being cheap either. So that it's the new Bengal contract negotiations, or however you want to put it. I think it's the new philosophy that they're having here.
I think they've always prioritized value and just buying. I don't want to say like buying low, but signing these guys at the point where they're still ascending and you can maximize the value of these players on these contracts because they haven't reached their full potential, and you're paying for maybe like B-level talent and then you're getting A-level production out of it. And Trey Hendrickson's like the perfect example. But I think now they've never been this hot at player evaluation. I'm just looking at the roster,
Right.
like they don't have a lot of bad players, and that's insane to think about because they were a 2-14 team 2 years ago. But up and down the roster, 64 players. There's not a lot of guys who you wouldn't necessarily feel comfortable out there playing at least some type of a minor role. They've just been on this incredible streak of player evaluation and getting the right guys into the building, but they're not expensive guys. They're not the top of the market guys all the time. And that's never going to be them. This is the way that they win. Like this is how they win. If you want to quote uncut gems there.
Yeah, I mean, another guy you could throw into that is Eli Apple, and I know people bang on him or whatever, but let's be honest. I really think Eli Apple, if the Bengals hadn't signed him last year, was pretty close to maybe being out of the league. And now he's went from that to being a potential. I mean, who knows what happens in the draft and if they sign another corner, but potential being another starting cornerback, for the Bengals again this year. And the thing is, he is improved on his tackling, which he wasn't a very good tackler. That's what was a wrap on. He got better tackling. He got a little better cover. He still got burnt. I mean, I don't get it wrong. He still got burnt. He's not your upper echelon cornerback, but he played a lot better. And I give credit to Lou Anarumo for that and coaching him up.
Yeah, and I mean, it wasn't the first time that he was with Anarumo, but you just wonder, like, how there's so many variables that go into whether or not a player is a quote unquote bust or not. And with Apple, he was a first round pick, and there was so much expectations. And you can throw in like William Jackson the third in there too, is like another guy with a lot of expectations based off draft status. And then these players, they're more or less they are who they are, and it's just a matter of if they're a product of the NFL draft machine, hyping them up and scouts and teams like making them out to be more than what they are. Like Eli Apple hasn't really changed that much from what he was in 2021 to what he was in like 2019 necessarily, but if you put him in a role in a scheme that's better for him and whatnot, like you can minimize the deficiencies in his game where he's still Eli Apple at the end of the day, and you just have to live with that. But like it's a much better player within a controlled environment compared to him in a different place where he didn't really fit in, like with the Saints and the Panthers and whatnot. So Eli Apple's still Eli Apple, but all it takes is just one fit. It's just one fit that you can find, and then you can pop off a great career with that. And maybe you're not viewed as this bust that you were 4 years previously. So it really just depends on if you find that team where you thrive in, but there's 31 other teams where you may not, then you're viewed as a bust.
Yeah, and I kind of tie that into the Tyler Linderbaum just don't say controversial, but discussion.
Yeah.
And since he's only a center, he's only he does the zone blocking just like the Bengals do. There's only certain teams that'll want a guy like that, and there's only certain teams where he can thrive at. And that's why I keep just banging the table. If he's there at 31, he's perfect for the Bengals. I think at center, and you kick Ted Karras over to left guard, which Ted Karras is actually played better at left guard than he has center. So you're putting both of them at their maximum positions to thrive in. And to me, you got 5 studs in your offensive line. And John, if that happens, I was hoping we'd sign 2 free agents, get 2 out. We might replace everybody except Jonah Williams if this happens.
Yeah, and I don't know. I don't even know if that was the plan going into it. But you look at who they have either lost or didn't bother bringing back. Like it's already 3/5 of the offensive line right now, including Quinn Spain, who they haven't re-signed. They cut Trey Hopkins. They're not bringing back Riley Reef. He might just retire, and they obviously replaced whoever was at right guard. So it's just Jonah Williams left there with Linderbaum. So yeah, he's like a center only, and that doesn't necessarily help his status. But like, I mean, just because you're proficient in zone blocking doesn't mean that the rest of the league wouldn't necessarily want you. Like, I mean, zone's still incredibly common and popular amongst other NFL schemes. But yeah, the lack of positional versatility and maybe the lack of overall physical build, it limits his projection to moving to like guard and whatnot. But I mean, Jeff, one thing that kind of gets on my nerves with Linderbaum, and I'm not here to say that he's like the next great center in the NFL. I think that's a little bit unfair, but I saw a guy that the Browns had for many years, and Alex Mack, completely thrive within the AFC North. And it's a very shockingly similar build and athleticism profile. And there's not a ton of guys who are built like that with only like 32, 31 and a half inch arms who can also move like that and still succeed in the NFL. But Mack was definitely one of them. And I think Linderbaum is as talented as Mack was coming out of Cal, like 2007, 2008. So we've seen it happen before. And I think that's a very weird knock on Linderbaum. Like, he's not big enough or physical enough to handle what we still perceive to be the AFC North. I think it's a little bit ludicrous to me.
Yeah. And the thing is, which I like, beginning of after the Super Bowl ended, Linderbaum was the guy. That's what everybody wanted. And then he kind of shot up the boards, and then they found out he had short arms, and then he kind of dropped back. Well, what's scaring me now is people like me and like you are talking about him more. So I wonder if he's going to shoot back up. Not that NFL scouts or anybody are listening to us, but other people are talking about it too. They're more well known than us, are talking about it. If he would shoot back up and maybe not be there at 31, and if he's not, then I think they're taking a cornerback. But what's your thoughts on all that?
It's like, I don't believe that like we impact player stocks.
I don't think we do. But I mean, like people at NFL Network and scouting people and all, they're talking about that. That's where I get my information from. So
sure, like if you see people who make mock drafts who are continuously in the know, like you have your Jeremiahs, you have Charles Davises of the world, you even have Mel Kiper and whatnot. Like they make their mock drafts with the purpose of being accurate, knowing what they know in certain circles. And I think they realize that Linderbaum, he's still the consensus number 1 center. He still has a first round grade attached to him for most of the NFL. But it's just a case of who needs a center, who needs a center more than other positions, who needs a center more than these other guys who have first round grades attached to them. Then you have the aspects of teams trading back up into the first round for quarterbacks. And then that's how you get someone of Linderbaum's caliber to slide. And then you see the Bengals at 31 who could still need or could use another interior offensive lineman. And that's why that fit makes sense when they're building these mock drafts in general. So I don't know how much his quote unquote stock has really fluctuated. I think it's really just a case of people in the media catching up to what people in the NFL have already been on for a while now. And that's kind of how we see this fluctuation or this roller coaster of draft stock that we'd like to get attached to. But I think he's always been in that mid to late first conversation. It's just a matter of just trying to connect all the dots with what other teams need.
Yeah, and just to clarify, I wasn't saying because you and me are talking about the NFL scouts. Going, oh my God, John and Jeff are talking about this. Well, yeah, I know we don't have that much influence, but I'll get some of the chat crew in here. Lindsay's giving a shout out to Randall in the background there for you.
There you go. Randall says thanks.
And Natty, and this kind of goes upon what you were just talking about. What's more pressing need? O-line, cornerback, defensive tackle, or edge rusher?
So, like, just the basic general question, like, what's the most pressing need? Like, they need someone behind BJ Hill because they have no one.
Have anybody, right?
And they need an answer at left guard, but they at least have potential answers at that spot. If you were to like play football right now with 22 starters, you don't know who is starting at left guard, and that's like I think that's still something that we kind of have to get over. Like the Bengals in their mind, like they have bodies to
Mhm.
compete at that spot, and that impacts like the plans that with the draft, I would think.
Mhm.
And they don't really have the bodies to compete at defensive tackle
Right.
behind the like because BJ Hill and DJ Reader, like those are fine starters, but like they lost a lot of snaps with the departure of Larry Ogunjobi. Even if he would not be starting, like there's still a rotation that exists there. There's still fronts where you have five defensive linemen, 3 defensive tackles in there. So like the most pressing need to me is probably defensive tackle. But again, that doesn't mean that it's enough where you would reach for one maybe in the first round or even the second round. Like you still have to play the draft for
Right.
what it is, but like the most pressing need is probably one of those two because you're completely unsure at this point with both of them.
Yeah, I agree with you that, and I agree with your point too. Is the defensive tackle? There might not be a guy there that's worth taking at 31. I mean, if Wyatt is there from Georgia, absolutely, I'm taking him. But I think there's slim to none chance that he's going to be there. And I think everybody else is that's in the upper echelon is going to be gone by the time they get to us too. So that's where the Bengals have to be smart, where they can draft the best player available, but you don't need to reach for it because there's still guys that they can't sign. Because you got to remember, BJ Hill, they got him like literally right before the season started last year. So there's
Yeah.
still time. I mean, there's still guys out there that they could potentially sign to be the backup or whatever. Because the thing is, and I think this with the draft, the Bengals are going to see how the draft falls, and then they're going to go sign to fill in the rest of the gaps with free agents that are left. It's kind of what they did last year too.
Yeah, and I mean, there's that angle and aspect for the free agents too. Like they want to see like which teams need like certain positions at the end of the draft too, which is why there's also an argument why the draft should maybe be in front of free agency because that would benefit free agents and getting those deals and whatnot. But yeah, like that's certainly a possibility. They only have like 64 players on the roster. You don't think that they're gonna add 25 or 26 rookies.
Right.
So say they have like 8 picks, maybe like 9 or 10 if they trade back. And then I think in the Zach Taylor era, they've only signed like at most 10 or 11 college free agents in a
Mhm.
single class. So that's like 20 rookies that you have to assume are being brought in. That's only 84, 85 players on the 90-man roster. So you have to think that they're purposely leaving open at least a couple spots for that offseason roster. And you have to think that at least a couple of them are going to be filled sometime after the draft just to see, like, just to solidify whatever else hole is available there. But there's also the case of you would rather leave some of those holes open for the draft because like there's a lot of attachment to some of these notable names that like defensive tackle and cornerback and whatnot. And I understand that. And like Justin Houston, Melvin Ingram, I've got a ton of people saying like, oh, why haven't they gone after these guys? Like these guys can still produce. Yeah, that might be the case. You're also taking on someone who, may have already played his best football, may not be any good anymore for at least one more year.
Right.
And why would you want to be attached and promise a role to someone like that when you can find someone 10 years younger on a 4-year deal who's an even better fit for their scheme? And I think that's what a lot of teams are thinking about, honestly. Like, yeah, Melvin Ingram and Justin Houston, guys like that. Stephon Gilmore, sure, is another example of cornerback. Yeah, they're talent. They have pedigree attached to those names, but teams are thinking about the quality of investment for a much younger player, someone who it can be molded by your culture, by your coaching, in
Right.
a better fit for your scheme. And I think that just goes into the decision-making process when talking about notable free agents versus just using the draft to fill those spots.
Exactly. Now, since I'm kind of curious just myself, but I don't think he got signed by anybody. But it said, who did Honey Badger sign with? Did he sign with anybody? Not that I know of.
There was like a fake report that he signed with San Francisco like a few weeks ago, and I kind of ran with it, and I just assumed that he was gone, but I guess he's not. I think he was visiting the Saints, and that was funny though because like I saw a couple tweets from like people in New Orleans, and they were doing the same thing that like people in Cincinnati did with Lel. They were like taking pictures of him and like saying, "Hey, we'd love to have you down here."
Right.
So I don't know if they're in negotiations with him right now, but that was like the last I heard with Matthew.
Okay. Brandon here, he said he just jumped on and he wants to know how we kind of talked about this already, but how what's your thoughts on how realistic it is that Leonard Bong, I'm going to get his name right one of the times. Leonard Bong is there at 31.
I mean, it's realistic as anything. It's always funny, like, oh, like a guy's never going to be there, you know.
Right.
Like Goodberry had the best tweet about this.
His
Basically,
tweet
did
where
an
he said
analogy.
his tweet where he said you can't say he's not going to be there. They had the discussion on
Yeah,
Twitter. Yeah,
so like this is the scenario. Like, all right, if it doesn't rain tomorrow, we're gonna go golfing at 10. No, man, it's gonna rain tomorrow. But if it doesn't, no, it's gonna rain. All right, you freaking meteorologist, fine, it's gonna rain. All right, fine. I guess Linderbaum's not gonna be there.
Right.
If you say so. I ran 10,000 mock simulations and 9,999 don't have him there.
exactly. People, it cracks when people ask me that all the time. What do you think? Well, hell, I don't know. I hope he's going to be there. I mean, it just depends on what people pick in front of him. Like I said,
Now,
I keep saying, good.
I don't think that there's going to be like a bong video of Linderbaum, and that's why he's going to fall. But anything could happen.
No gas mask or nothing like that.
No.
Oh, jeez. All right, let's get to Royal Flush Terry here. He says Josh Tupou and Tyler Shelvin are definitely not great scenario or security blankets for Hill and Reader. Piron Winfrey, a defensive tackle for Oklahoma, is worth considering at 31. What do you think?
Sure. I think he's regarded as like maybe a day 2 guy, but that's also an interesting concept, and just like how willing are you to take on some players who you may not feel like are going to be there at 63,
right?
And that's where the argument of a trade down also comes into the equation. Like, not just him, like a Kyler Gordon, the cornerback from Washington. If there's like a run on cornerbacks and you feel pretty good about him, but you think there's like an outside chance of him being available at 63, but maybe like he's going to be there in like the 30s if you trade back for him. So like, I don't know a ton about Winfrey. I just know that like I think Dane Brugler has him as a 2nd round pick. PFF has him like as a 3rd round guy. So maybe 31 might be a little bit too early. But again, that comes into, are you really that desperate to take a defensive tackle where you would potentially reach for one at 31? Is that really the spot that you want to be in? Like, that's not what teams who go to the Super Bowl think about. They don't think about just filling one spot with your 1st round pick. I'll be damned about what the rest of the board looks like.
Exactly. Bengal Brown here is calling me out. He says every day we talk about Linderbaum, and every day Jeff says his name wrong. Linderbaum. There you go. Bong.
Linderbaum. Yeah.
They're bomb. There you go. All right. Crown wants to. What do you think about Booth? And I want to throw Elam in there too, because those are the 2 corners I keep hearing the most. Either Booth or Elam.
I think either would be fine for what they need, and it's just a guy that can develop for a year or 2, or maybe even compete with Eli. I think Booth might be, I don't know, I think he's the slightly more polished version. Elam was phenomenal for Florida as like an underclassman, then he kind of dropped off a little bit. I think he ran into some issues with penalties, and I think just his overall hand usage kind of gets him into trouble. Whereas with Booth, you have more questions about his athleticism.
Right.
But it's like his overall footwork is still fine. It's just like maybe there's some issues with some of that deep speed, which is why, I mean, both these guys have flaws, and that's why they're not going to be like early 1st round picks by any means, and why they could one or both of them be available with the 31st pick. I think it comes down to preference ultimately. Right. I think like Booth to me seems like the more solid player. I think everything else is equal with them. Like, they come from great programs. They've played against great competition. I think they're athletic enough to be worth that pick. It just comes down to which type of cornerback do you want. Do you want the long, lanky version that maybe gets his hands on more passes in Elam, or do you want the more technical version that is less likely to get burnt in Booth? So I think for me, I might be leaning more towards Booth there, but I don't really I wouldn't argue with an Elam pick there either.
All right, and now this kind of, I think, so set up how the draft goes. But he says how many quarterbacks will be taken in the 1st round is the real question, which I think it's a big thing as far as what happens with the Bengals and who's there and who's not of the quarterbacks. I really do.
Yeah, I have no idea. Like, Pickett, Willis, Corral. Like, honestly, I'm going to be more interested.
Desmond Ridder. Come on, John. Desmond Ridder.
You didn't let me finish.
Okay,
I'm going to be so much more interested in where Ridder goes than what the Bengals do with the 1st round pick. Yeah, I mean, like, that's already a long wait. It's like a 3-hour wait to see who's picked at 31st. Like, to see if Ridder actually goes into the 1st round after his entire collegiate career, like entering this past season, like, I didn't think he was going to be anything more than like a mid to late round pick, and then to see him just, again, I don't know how much his stock has actually changed, or if he was always this highly regarded, if he just proved it for one more year. But
Right.
if he actually goes into the first round, I'm going to be kind of hyped, regardless of where he goes.
I got a 499 super chat here. Dustin, you're gonna try to make me read this name. Daggone it. Arnold, or no, I totally messed that up. Arnold, he's.
I can find the phonetic pronunciation if you want me to.
Oh my goodness.
Ebukati.
Ebukati. There you go.
Ebukati.
There you go. At 31, he said that dog will hunt.
Yeah, I have no idea who this is.
I think he just wanted to get me to try to read.
Oh, he's an edge rusher. Okay, from Penn State. Sure, why not?
I think he just trying to get me to read the name. I have a hard time. And Satori gave me $1. Thanks, Satori. Appreciate it, man. Appreciate it.
What's up, man?
All right, let's see here. Okay. All right, here you go. Centauri said 31 is basically a day 2. The board is so hard to predict at that point.
Yeah, no kidding. Like, it's gonna be funny is that because every fan like lives and dies on what Dave Lapham predicts for the Bengals, and he's not gonna like. What's he gonna say like before the draft? Like, oh, maybe this guy, maybe this guy. He's gonna be like, oh, well, we have no idea what the board's gonna be like. It's gonna be the most useful or useless Dave Lapham prediction series of all time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm with Crown here, and this is when we talk about Ritter. We just don't want to get drafted by the Squealers. That's the one thing I just don't let the Squealers draft him, man.
Sure, fine, but I feel like that's a place where he's not going to flame out and bust immediately. Which, I mean, if I'm thinking about him, there's at least that.
Yeah. So last time you were on here, you had a rant on Desiree. Have you changed it at all? Or are you still kind of feeling that he's not as good as everybody thinks he is, or what's your thoughts on that?
So I don't think that he's like changed necessarily. I think he's a phenomenal person, and I think teams really love that in a potential quarterback. And I think he's a fine and okay quarterback. It's like, if gun to my head, if I had to invest a first round pick on him, I probably wouldn't. I don't think that I don't think it's likely that he becomes a high quality quarterback. I think it's possible that he eventually develops into a solid quarterback. And if that's worth a first round pick to you, if you're that desperate for a quarterback, so be it. I think mentally and all the intangibles to go down that path, I think he's fine and he has it. But like in terms of the actual ability to play quarterback, I don't personally see it just yet. But right. I've been pleasantly surprised with how beloved he is within the draft community and people who value quarterbacks and people who I trust dearly with their opinions on quarterback play. And he's just universally like been appraised compared to the rest of this class. And I don't know if that's more of an indictment on the rest of the class, but I think he's more loved within the draft community than I thought, which is it's pleasantly been surprising to me.
Yeah, and the thing is with Desmond, I think he's getting his leadership ability. I think is the big thing, because I heard a story. I listen to lots of podcasts. You guys might have said it on OBI. I don't remember, but Zach Taylor, when he went and was recruiting or scouting Desmond Ritter, Desmond didn't have a quarterback coach, so Desmond actually got like his friends and players, and he set up the scouting combine or showcase, whatever you want to call it, for Zach to come down and watch him. He set that all up with the routes and everything. Desmond set it all up himself, and that's pretty impressive right there in and of itself. And that's why I think he's such a revered, team leader and stuff. And those are things that are hard to instill in quarterbacks. Now they can fix the rest of it, which if Desmond could ever get off to better starts, I think it would have helped him out a lot. He's such a slow starter. That's what would drive me nuts.
Yeah. I do remember that anecdote. I don't know if this is true. I might be misremembering, but wasn't it like UC was like his last offer, and like it was because Zach Taylor offered him, and that's so that's phenomenal. That's a great connection.
Yeah, it was. I think it was him, and I think it might have been a D2 school or something like that.
Yeah,
that was it.
That was awesome.
Cat Hole here, he says, what will the Bengals bridge crew do when the practice is moved inside? Well, Bengals bridge crew won't be able to see anything. So
but this is a great point. Like, so I guess for anyone who doesn't know, I think Jeff just said it like there's a 99% chance at this point that the Bengals are going to have an interim indoor practice facility that's going to be ready for the 2022 season. It's going to be placed between the Brent Spence Bridge and the other bridge that's right next to it. next to the practice fields and stadiums. But this question is funny to me because the practice facility, and you can throw in the Ring of Honor in there. It's been the two things that the fan base has been just dying for with this team, and neither one benefits the fan base in any way, shape, or form. It doesn't impact them at all.
Right.
In fact, this is a negative for the fan base because then now the fans are going to be able to see them practice.
Right.
It's been so hilarious over the years to see this fan base like obsess over these two things that has nothing to do with their experience as a fan. And if anything, this kind of diminishes it.
I think it's more of the get everybody to stop talking so much crap about the Bengals. You know, you don't have this, you don't have that. Shut up. We do now. You can't say anything else. But I've had a couple people ask me, like, hey, what are you going to do if they have an indoor practice facility? I'm like, well, same thing I do when they have practice inside the stadium. I can't watch it, you know? So it happens.
Santori is asking, will it have indoor plumbing? It might have porta potties. I mean, don't waste the porta potties at that point.
Hell, it's probably got porta potties already there. It's a parking lot.
That parking lot is. I tailgated there for the first time for the playoff game because that's where my cousins usually tailgate, and they had this giant Thunderstruck circle, which was cool.
Nice.
So I don't know what's going to happen to people who tailgate there. Again, a negative for the fan base. Ruins parking, ruins tailgating.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they already say the national narrative is we don't have a very good tailgating area. So that's next thing. That's next thing everybody's going to get up in arms about.
They're just going to pivot, you know. There's
always
going to be a pivot.
Yeah, we got to fix the tailgate, which I beg to differ. I think our tailgating is pretty damn good. I think anyway. Let's see, now Royal Flush Sherry's got another one here. He said, let's not forget that we need depth at safety, which is very true, especially with the contracts going around with the wide receivers and everything, and Jesse Bates not being signed, Von Bell coming up soon. So this is something that they should address, I think, hopefully in this year's draft, if there's somebody there that's worth drafting.
Yeah, I feel like it's going to be at least one of cornerback or safety that's addressed early in the draft. And if it's not cornerback, then I would definitely foresee a safety being picked in the first at least 4 rounds, probably in the top 3 rounds. It's just like I don't foresee both Bates and Bell being retained long term. So you have to think that one of those spots needs a long-term replacement. That really is how they have to look at this draft, like, and just drafts in general going forward. You're not going to be able to pay all these guys. It's going to be really hard to pay the rest of the roster when you hopefully have Burrow, Chase, and Higgins all extended long-term. You have to start thinking financially, like what's the best way of going forward. And with the draft, it's getting these positions, getting them young talent, young premium talent under contract for rookie contracts and having them develop so they can be quality starters by the time that some of these guys move on. And that's definitely the case with safety.
Yeah, and that's just the nature of the beast too. I mean, they're not going to be able to keep everybody, and just for having a championship team and having that quarterback, you got to be able to keep replenishing the guys that you're going to lose. That's what the Patriots. I hate to bring up the Patriots, but that's what they do all the time. These teams that have won multiple Super Bowls do. Now, Catball here comes back and says, with the indoor bubble, he goes, you'll just need credentials. Make sure your pal Jackpot Joey will hook you up. Yeah. I don't think I have a shot at getting credentials. I'm not official. I know AC got credentials at Super Bowl. He had a lot of fun out there, look like.
Well, he's got connections inside the locker room. That's invaluable. So
yeah, I need to work on that. I don't know how to get that yet. Let's see here. Let's go to Brandon here. Okay, I guess this is talking about what you're saying, what they're complaining about next. That fans are just tired of the national media dogging the Bengals about the indoor practice facility. I know I am, and I was tired of the playoff drought talk. I was tired of all of it. I'm glad we shut them all up, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, at a certain point, like, why do you keep listening? Maybe like I don't listen to. I rarely watch ESPN anymore. I don't watch NFL Network anymore. Maybe that's just me, but like, I don't know. It's always been a weird viewpoint of like insecurity, where it's like, I mean, you're a Bengals fan. You know what this team is. You know what it isn't. And if people don't bother to learn like the nuances of everything, then that's just on them. I don't know. It's just been years of this. At some point, you just got to evolve.
Yeah, they should be watching them anyway. They should be watching OBI and Strawberry Ice. Forget ESPN and all that. All right. Since that Bengal here says, what if we end up trading Jesse Bates for draft picks to move up like that, probably to 17 or 18.
So who's trading for Jesse Bates? Like who would trade for anyone on
Well,
a
especially
franchise tag?
that high. That's the thing. I was like, he's a good safety, but we hold him in high regard. But across the league, he's not considered like one of the best safeties. Well, he's considered one of the best, but not the best. I don't know if anybody give up a first round pick for him in this draft.
No.
He'd be an impact player for them.
Like very rarely would you see the case of like a team trading a premium pick for the right to then pay someone long term. Like it's just not something that you see, and I think teams still hold Jesse in a high regard, and he would definitely get paid if he were on the open market. But just the fact that he is on the franchise tag, it just makes him just completely unattractive to anyone else right now.
Right? Yeah, exactly. And Centauri, and I hope you know who he's talking about. I don't know who Centauri's talking about. I said if Burks is BPA, would you?
Oh, Treylon Burks, I think, is the guy from Arkansas. So
Okay.
I think he's definitely one of the 5, 4, maybe even the 3 best receivers in the class. Receivers interesting, Jeff. Like because you have those questions about the future with Higgins and Chase and who you're going to keep, and like I think Boyd's only got a couple years left on his deal. Like at a certain point, like that's something that you may have to consider, and maybe if no one else you like is there and you can't trade back, like would it be the worst thing in the world? It wouldn't be ideal, but I don't know. It's like,
I mean, that's the thing for me. I've already come to grips with it that this is Boyd's last contract with the Bengals. This is Mixon's last contract with the Bengals, and there's a slight chance that we might not be able to keep T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. I mean, there is. I mean,
there's a definite chance.
Yeah, I mean, Stephon Diggs signed for $96 million freaking dollars. Like that's a hell of a lot of money, and we got 2 guys that are just as good, if not better, than him.
Yeah, so they definitely have this core for the next 2 years, and I think that's like the window that everyone's attaching themselves to. Right. So I think even though I would still want to think in a long-term sense, like I still want a somewhat decent path to getting a guy onto the field, and with a receiver in general, I don't think that path is there outside of like a 3-year type window. And even then, like you still have to think about the value of a rookie contract, and you're just basically nuking the first 2 years for a receiver when you're already getting a ton of production from your other 3 receivers to that point. You're going to pay at least one of them. So I think receiver is probably one of the positions where I just wouldn't do so, at least this year.
Yeah. Now I have a question. Now, if okay, let's just say, not that I'm asking you to predict, but if you're with all your studying and everything, your best case scenario, what do you think the Bengals will do at 31 and possibly the 2nd or 3rd round? Where do you think they're at?
I think they want to go defense at 31. I think if certain things happen with the board, like they could see a path where they just screw it, just take an offensive lineman and completely solidify that group. But I don't think that's necessarily the plan based off of everything that happened in free agency. I think they want to take a cornerback to compete with Eli or to just develop behind him for a year, and I think they want to either do that or a pass rusher of any kind. Like they have a ton of guys at defensive end, but not a lot of proven guys. So if the right edge is there, I think he's definitely in play. If the right defensive tackle is there, I think he's in place. So I would bet that they go defense in the first round, and they could easily go defense in the second round too. Like safety 100% is in the conversation as well. Like a guy like Dax Hill, who's a cornerback at Michigan, but he projects more as a safety. I think he's in the conversation. Lewis Seen, the guy from Georgia, I think he's in the conversation. So I would say a secondary player is getting drafted in the first 2 rounds, and the pass rusher is getting drafted in the first 3 rounds. And anything else outside of that, like a tight end for sure would be in the conversation outside of the first round. But I think, yeah, a pass rusher and a secondary guy, a defensive back, is getting drafted early, I would say.
Now, the thing I keep saying too is obviously all we always say is depending on how the board goes. But if there's not a guy there at 31 that's on their board, or they're like, oh my God, we have to have this guy, or there's guys that they like, but he might not, we might be able to go back and get somebody similar to him in the second round. I think there's a chance, and there's a pretty good chance because the Bengals like doing this. I think of trading back. Now, if you trade back, you're giving up that 5th year, which is a big deal. But if you trade back and you can get multiple picks, I think the Bengals, that might be in the mix for them too as well.
Yeah, they only have, I say only, they have 8 picks this year, and it's still kind of on the low side compared
Right.
to where they typically like to be. And I think trading back from 31 is always interesting because you think that it happens a lot, but it honestly kind of doesn't. Like outside of like the Seahawks, because they never use a first round pick, it doesn't always happen where teams trade out of the first round at the very end. You just think that it makes a lot of logical sense because teams want to trade back into the first round just to get that chance, that get that fifth year option on some players, but it doesn't always happen. It would make a lot of sense, but if it doesn't happen there, I could definitely see it happening some other time in the draft. Like they always trade down the second round, but again, trading down from like the 40s or like 30s is different than trading down from 63. So I would still bet that they end up with more than 8 picks, but I wouldn't say that like trading down the first round is a likelihood at this point, just because of how rare it is.
Yeah, and sometimes when you're drafting this low in the draft, it's more of a it's more of a dartboard. You don't know what you're going to get, so sometimes you want to draft more guys and have a bigger swing at it to get guys who could actually be productive players for you. The more players you have, the better shot you have of actually having guys who can contribute. So the Bengals might be going that direction, and I keep saying it because they spent so much money on the defense. They're not. I keep saying it. They're not going to be able to keep everybody for years down the road here. They're going to have to replenish them, and the defensive guys are the ones that the contracts are going to come up first. So that's kind
Yeah.
of where why I keep going back to. They might trade back because they have to keep this thing going. We don't want to run into what we ran into 6 years ago when we let Whitworth and Zeitler and Sanu and Jones and let them all go, and we had nothing behind them. That's what they want to. I'm hoping avoid this time.
Yeah, I think ideally they want one of two scenarios. First, they would love a 2020 scenario where like T. Higgins was there and they had like a clear first round grade on him and they just pulled the trigger. They
Right.
even like wanted to take Logan Wilson there, but they couldn't pass up who they thought was like this bona fide first round guy in T. Higgins. And obviously they were right in that evaluation.
Right.
So I think that's what they want. They want someone to just fall there, and that happens every single year, at least to some team. Like a guy who you don't expect just falls for whatever reason. Teams just overlook him for whatever reason. But if that doesn't happen, if they feel like all of their top targets are gone, I think that then they would love to get a decent offer to move back and just to take advantage of that and to see who else falls, 10 or 8 or however many picks they trade back back behind 31. So I think they would love one of those two scenarios because you're definitely still in a position to get a great player with that pick. It's not guaranteed because you have no idea what's going to happen in the first 30 picks.
Exactly. All right, John, we give you about 47 minutes. I appreciate it. Make sure you guys go check him and AC out at the OBI Orange and Black Insider podcast and all the stuff that you do at Cincy Jungle. I know you had an article out a little while ago about Trey Flowers, and that's what got me excited that they could sign him, and it came to fruition that they did sign him. Well, you got anything coming out here anytime soon?
Do I? I had this one and that's been like on the backlog for a little bit. I might not even finish it until after the draft. But other than that, man, I mean, we got all your news, we got all your analysis, we got everything related to Bengals draft and just Bengals in general. We got it all covered on Cincy Jungle. So just check us out there.
Yeah, exactly. Check you guys out. Check out Mike Minnick. And then used to be Ace and Zim, but they're got their own stuff they're doing in Cincinnati. Go check them out too. Those are my boys. They're gonna be on, I think, next Friday for me. I think a week from tonight.
They're already killing it, man. I'm loving what they're doing
Oh, they're
there.
awesome.
They're on their own and they're making the most of it. I have nothing but the absolute most confidence that they're going to kill it.
Exactly. Those are my dudes. All right, John. I appreciate you, man. Who day?
I'll talk to you later, Jeff.
See you, bud. Bye. All right, guys. As always, I hope you appreciate that as much as I did. John is awesome. Go check him out. Him and Anthony Kazenza AC on the Orange and Black Insider podcast. Also check out Mike Minnick, Coach Minnick on their podcast as well. They're always a good read and a good podcast to listen to. We got about 3 weeks, I think, until the NFL draft hits. We got the Reds tonight. Will they go for 2-0? Do you believe yet? Do you people believe yet? I don't know. They look better than I thought they would last night, but it's one game. We'll see what happens. I'm going to watch them again tonight. Let me get to the Facebook groups that let me live stream, and I appreciate every single one of them. They are Houday Nation, Houday Legion, Cincinnati Reds riding third, heading for home, Bearcat Ruckus, Bearcat Country, the Ohio State Bucknuts, the Ice Bar, and then you can follow me on all my social media platforms, all under Sports with Strawberry Ice. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Twitter handle is at Jeff A. Trinipole. TikTok is at Iceman90. If you missed any of the interview with John the Brain Sheeran, you can listen to it on the podcast. If you're going to work, driving around this weekend, check it out. It's on BeanPod, Apple iTunes, Spotify, Google, Stitcher Play, pretty much wherever you get your podcasts. Please make sure you rate, like, and review. Give me a 5-star review. I would greatly appreciate it. Leave a comment so more Cincinnati fans can find my podcast. YouTubers, you guys are killing it. I love you guys. I am making some big strides. I'm at 1,550 subscribers. I'm trying to do a little bit more on the channel. I'm putting posts up, polls. I'm trying to do a little 5 to 10 minute video during the day on different articles or different thoughts I had that we could talk about, different news of the day. So make sure you guys are always checking out the channel, always checking me out on, like I said, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff. And tell your friends, tell your neighbors about Sports with Strawberry Ice. Like I said, I'm trying to reach 2,000 subscribers by the time the football season rolls around, which is September. Hopefully I get that before then. That would be awesome, but who knows? Other than that, you guys have a wonderful weekend. And hopefully the Reds will win. That'd be awesome. And that's just sports, baby. See ya!
Let's go. Stripes, 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 yeah, stripes, 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 orange in the day, black in the night. Stripes in our veins, sparks gonna fly. The beast disobey, orange, black and white. Cause when the jungle come alive, day we ignite and Cincinnati, we gon' rise and in the jungle we unite and dripping orange and black and white. Day when we fight, live and die in these stripes. Wake up the beast, every day is a feast. Time to bust it off the leash. In the jungle dripping heat, tigers strike the city streets. East side stand up, west side stand up. If you reppin' time to put your hands up. Bengals stripes, we in it. New day, new age, yeah, we get it. Cincinnati jungle fit it. Blue day in our house, we win it. Orange and black and white, we build it. Earn our stripes, you know we kill it. Bleed our colors, jungle dripping. Nasty, natty, yeah, we live it. Lit the crowd, get the city loud. Yeah, we feasting now. Fit the bounce, make the city howl. Now we beastin' now. Thunder through the tunnel, from the sideline to the huddle. Stripes we tatted on the jungle when we flex that who they muscle on them. Stripes, Cincinnati, we gon' rise and in the jungle we unite and dripping orange and black and white. All day when we fight, live and die in these stripes. Stripes. Now who gotta move like it on? Stripes. Now who wanna move dancing on? Stripes. Now who wanna move on? If you got stripes and you let the city know you rock them, yeah we got them, yeah we fought them. Like that black and orange up on them, bingo bottom, never stop it till the beast and know them. Who they rockin' with the diamond stripes, flossin' on them.